Video games are pretty normal nowadays and have been for quite a while, but there are certain games that if somebody saw you playing them, you'd have some explaining to do. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx 10 games you'd be embarrassed getting caught playing. Starting off with number 10, it's Tomb Raider 2013. Maybe I'm showing my age here, but I remember back with the original Tomb Raider games. They came out and everybody thought you were a perv for playing them. Probably because you were. They're good games, but also you were a perv for playing them. By today's standards, they are about as tame as games get. Lara's sharp and pointies notwithstanding. It's not really what was necessarily in the game. It was probably more the marketing and packaging of the game. Regardless, when the 2013 reboot came around, the priority seemed to be making this a more respectable take on Tomb Raider, but I don't think they can help themselves. They did try. The outfits are more toned down, at least. But I would say they exchanged video for audio here. They kind of failed miserably at making it more respectable because the constant grunting and moaning sounds that Lara makes when doing basically anything in the game make it feel absolutely filthy. Like, you had to turn the game down if other people are around, because anyone who's hearing this racket is going to be like, is this pornography? Are you watching? You're playing Tomb Raider. Oh, of course. You're playing Tomb Raider. But they made Lara not look like that. Yeah, dude, but they made Lara sound like that. When Tomb Raider first came out, just having a female protagonist in a major game was still kind of unusual. Now they're fairly common, and most people wouldn't bat an eye at playing at a girl in a game. But most games just don't have the protagonist constantly screaming, moaning, crying, and I don't know, just making movement sounds like this game does. Honestly, it's a little weird. Even when you aren't factoring in all the shockingly violent death animations, because those make it even a little weirder. If Crystal Dynamics' goal was to make a less embarrassing Tomb Raider game, they failed spectacularly. They made a game that isn't visually embarrassing. Sure, still a hot lady, but one that somebody sees the game and doesn't immediately think, well, you have other reasons to play this game, don't you? But now if they hear it across the room, they're like, do you need some alone time there, bud?
That's one way to get down.
And number 9 is the Yakuza games. The Yakuza games are mainly about men doing violence. They have extremely convoluted crime plots and a lot of really goofy nonsense. There are side stories and minigames where the super serious characters transform into the biggest dorks you could possibly imagine. Some of it very funny, some of it very embarrassing. Now, I do think the developers of Yakuza, to some extent, are intentionally inflicting this on you rather than accidentally. But it's maximum cringe one way or the other. It's the sort of thing you feel shame experiencing even when there's not anyone else around. There's stuff in the game where you will want to lock your doors, put on headphones, turn your phone off, and look away from the screen while you're playing it, lest you die of cringe exposure. Like, there are things in these games that make you want to pretend you are not part of the human world. Obviously, there is so much I could list here. There's the erotic videos from Yakuza 0, where you're literally just putting in a short tape where women in bikinis writhe around. Then there's the Cabaret Club management, I guess, mini game. I hesitate to call it a mission necessarily, but you're dressing hostesses up and ordering them around and stuff. There's an online mini game in Yakuza 6 where you help Kiryu type boobs into a chat window. Yush. It's all very goofy, exceptionally embarrassing stuff. You would think it couldn't get any worse than the catfights from Yakuza 0, where you play some kind of rock, paper, scissors game and watch half-naked women wrestle each other, which makes sense, I guess. But they somehow managed to make it even more mortifying with Mesu King from Yakuza Kiwami. What's cringier than a game where you're basically watching pornographic wrestling? What's cringier than that? We've said this in other videos, but like, sex in video games is always either very goofy or very cringe. But like in Mesu King, all the girls are wearing bug costumes. I don't know what I'm even looking at anymore. It's too embarrassing to even really talk about anymore. Let's stop. At number 8 is Stellar Blade. This is a game that feels like a throwback to a previous generation in more ways than one. It's a game that comes off like its Xbox 360 era, not just from the gameplay, but the absurdly over-sexualized main character. Really, if you remove the main character, even replaced her with, like, I don't know, a Revengeance-style Raiden, it would barely matter to the overall experience. The fact the playable character is an impossibly proportioned anime babe really doesn't matter to the plot, and bizarrely enough, there's not really a lot of camera stuff that really indulges. There's some, but not as much as you would expect for a game with a protagonist that looks like this. So, to me, the reason I probably would not want to get caught playing this game in full immersion mode, let's say, mostly comes down to the fact that, like, somebody walks in and you're, like, really, like, zoomed in on some of the outfits this woman can wear, from the quote-unquote naked suit to the straight-up bikini. It's actually possible to dress her in more sensible clothing. Not all of it's hyper-revealing, but most of it is. And you kind of have to go out of your way to put some pants on her. It's one of those games where your girlfriend is going to give you constant shit about it, and it somehow manages to be even more embarrassing than other games that are actually a lot more sexually explicit. Like, there's no actual nudity or really anything particularly lewd at all, but you can just feel sleaze radiating off the screen. And number 7 is Dragon's Crown. Man, Vanillaware has made some great stuff, but like most artists I've known, these guys cannot keep it in their pants. They are horny people, and we all have to see it. Their more recent games, like 13 Sentinels and Unicorn Overlord, have their questionable design decisions on occasion, the kind that would certainly make a loved one arch an eyebrow, but nothing too egregious. I think they learned to tone it down a bit, because in Dragon's Crown, they were letting their freak flag fly high. And it's kind of an issue because it's supposed to be a co-op game. Imagine inviting a normal friend over to play some video games, and you've already played some other beat-em-ups like Turtles in Time or Final Fights, so you suggest Dragon's Crown, a fantasy-themed beat-em-up. Should be fun. Is fun, actually, but you open up the character select, and, yeah. This sorceress here makes Jessica Rabbit look like a pretty restrained character design. And let's not talk about the incredibly detailed animation for too long, but this is excessive. Imagine you're a kid playing these two characters and your mom walks in on you. Just tell her you're watching porn. It's less embarrassing than trying to explain what the hell this is. It makes me slightly uncomfortable to even have to acknowledge this in public. Because honestly, you know, the other characters are kind of normal looking in comparison, except the dwarf. That guy's a meat mountain, but a semi-naked buff guy with a beard is way less embarrassing than this. Like, we've had superheroes that are more or less naked guys that are colored red or blue or purple or something for a very long time. We haven't had video games with this. Like, you can't even claim Lara Croft is this. That's got nothing on this woman clothed and walking. Forget walking. Look at the idle anime. This is. I said I wasn't going to talk about the animation too much. It's a lot, though. You can try to justify it in your head as much as you want. Actually, Dragon's Crown is a pretty good game. But all those arguments just fall apart when a wife or a girlfriend walks in on you playing as the sorceress standing still. Lord. And number 6 is Life is Strange, a game with a different kind of embarrassment. It's the sort of game you're not hiding from your wife or girlfriend unless, I don't know, they just like totally hate you playing something with girls or women in it at all, which would be kind of weird on their part. I would think that to some extent, it's almost refreshing to see female protagonists from time to time. But let's not go there. Life is Strange, you're not hiding from them. You're hiding from your brother, your dad, your roommate, etc. Because it's a game where you play as a teenage girl navigating high school drama, and it's not anime. Persona, thank you very much. I don't know, maybe, I think there's an element of you would be considered weird for playing Persona. Kind of the same thing I just described, except this is not anime, and there's a murder mystery, and it's supernatural. I guess Persona's supernatural, but a different way. Life is Strange is very Western, very emo. The majority of the gameplay does involve teenagers hanging out, being melodramatic, breakups, boys, some cringy dialogue, to be frank. Cringy, even in my opinion, as someone who actually does enjoy Life is Strange.
Could I, ask you a question? Would you mind letting me sketch you? I do put my sketches on Facebook, though.
Life is Strange has some cringy as hell dialogue. You kind of got to be willing to go with it, and not everybody's going to be. In fact, I think most people are not going to be, at least who are guys. Suffice to say, this is not a story the stereotypical video game male is used to seeing. It's also not one that comes off well in a lot of situations. The fact that Life is Strange is a good game is kind of shocking, honestly. But if I saw somebody watching this, like something like this on network TV, I would change the channel. It's certainly not the story and the characters' aesthetic and what the game looked like that drew me into it. Just an interesting game. I mean, sometimes it's nice for a refreshing change of pace. Just try something completely outside of your purview. And that was what I did with this game. I thought it was a good game. I think there are a lot of games that are trying to do the same thing as Life is Strange that are not good games. But for people willing to get into it, this is one of those games that can make a grown man cry. I am, of course, a bird, so that does not apply to me at all. But depending on your company, that can be extremely embarrassing. I mean, just imagine trying to explain any of Life is Strange to a normal person. You would sound like the weepiest dork ever.
And any one of you. Shh. I believe Max has taken what you kids call a selfie. A dumb word for a wonderful photographic tradition. And Max has a gift.
And number 5, the Bayonetta series. All right, let's get back to the TNA, the bread and butter of this list. The butt, the boobs, and literally no shame. Well, actually, I take that back. Lots of shame on your part. Nobody really knows how to explain Bayonetta. And it kind of drives me nuts because I am, of course, pro Bayonetta. A lot of people think they're shameless exploitation, and a lot of people think they're empowering and self-aware camp. I, of course, buy into the second of those two viewpoints as opposed to the first. I'm not going to tell you what to think about them, but you do not want to play these games with your significant other lurking around. It is inevitable. No matter what you do, someone will walk in when something crazy cringy happens on screen. Bayonetta will get her clothes torn and be moaning, or like the camera will zoom in on her crotch while she is doing what one might do with one's crotch if one wanted to feel quite good. Christ, there are no euphemisms for that work on YouTube, are there? But there's tons of dancing, tons of double entendre, some really intentionally forced double entendre. There's tons of parts where you're summoning a demon, which makes you naked because your hair is the demon, and also your clothes. None of this can be explained to another human being. It's all very weird, very goofy, and as someone's watching, pretty mortifying, I think.
You've been cheating on me, haven't you? Someone else caught your eye?
The height of the embarrassment comes, I think, from the first game. It's where you encounter a doppelganger, which leads to a sexy dance-off that I mentioned some elements of a moment ago in my attempt to find a YouTube-friendly euphemism for something. But yeah, you get the point, right? These games are beyond fun. They're one of the central pillars of modern action design, but they're also very weird to the uninitiated, particularly a significant other that is annoyed with you playing video games anyways. And number 4 is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. There's a vast well of embarrassing content in JRPGs. Very deep, certainly not a dry well, just part of the medium. For players whose only experience with these types of games was the original Xenoblade Chronicles, which was completely free of anything particularly embarrassing, the sequel was, let's just say, eye-opening. For the sequel, they turned up the horny dial up to 10, and they snapped it off. They tried to keep going. I don't know if that affected anything or if it just stopped at 10, but it was at 0 before, so it doesn't matter. The horniness levels in this game are just beyond. They're overwhelming. The world design and the main story are very fun, but the amount of embarrassing scenes is exponentially higher, mostly down to Pyra, the main girl with the backbreakers. These things are in every scene and are constantly distracting, and it is not our fault for looking. This game wants you to look at them at every available opportunity. Just look at the first cutscene Pyra even appears in. It's straight up just a hard close-up of her chest. It's not like we're being introduced to the character, but rather the concept of breasts. Like, a necessary piece of exposition for this game was, in fact, that breasts exist and can be as big as we want them. There's a ton of embarrassing, stereotypical anime scenes in this game. Like, there's a whole Hot Springs cutscene, because of course there is, and that's not even the end of the horny characters. See, this game has this whole blade system where you can randomly get new assist characters called blades. Most of them are generic, but some of the legendary ones are designed by guest artists. A few are normal. Not a lot. Most of them are extremely horny. Yeah, you don't have to use them all, but still, so many of these designs are just gratuitous, and it adds up to a game that just feels incredibly adolescent. There's a lot of positives about the game. It's an impressive RPG in a lot of ways, but dang, it is embarrassing trying to play this game around other people.
That way, you can be revived. As my driver. As the driver of the Aegis.
At number 3 is Metal Gear Solid 5. It's quiet, full stop. That's all there is to say. Everything else about the game is completely fine, but they throw in this character who's already wearing a bikini and make it weird. She's one of the new assist characters you get, and the only human. The others are a dog and a robot, and while those both have their uses, Quiet is a lot more handy to have around because she's an extremely skilled sniper, and I don't need to explain why that's useful. It's self-explanatory. But, like, you bring her on a mission and she's hanging around that helicopter. She is always around, showing up in cutscenes, and it's always jarring because it is like basically her moving around in that helicopter like, hey, look at this. Oh. You can dress her in regular old fatigues, but it's not explained anywhere in the game how to, and it's also not a default option. You have to unlock it. Getting her in some actual clothes is pretty much essential if you want to play the game around other people. Otherwise, you're going to have to answer a whole bunch of awkward questions. Trying to explain the bikini only makes it worse. Oh yeah, she breathes through her skin, so she has to wear basically nothing. You don't want her to suffocate, do you? Yes, now that you've recognized the secret reason for her exposure, you will feel ashamed of your words and deeds. Yeah, I don't think anybody's actually going to buy that. I am obviously still saying that line because it's the funniest thing in the world, and no one buys it. They're like, no, that's just a sexy lady. You came up with a weird in-game, in-world explanation for why she's always got to be half naked. In fact, it's a weird character all around. Like, she's the one buddy who gets a dramatic story where the character leaves the base and Big Boss has to go after her. Like, it's a whole dramatic scene. It's actually one of the most cinematic segments of the entire game, and it's an optional mission dedicated to this random, basically naked woman who is single-handedly responsible for making it so you can't play this game around other people without getting laughed out of the room. Moving on to number 2, and then there's Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. I could put the entire Dead or Alive series on here, but at least for a little while, the fighting games had some credibility. It's not so much the case anymore, with DOA 5 and 6 selling like $1,000 worth of spank bait costumes, but it was true at some point. At the very least, you could play as one of the few dudes, so you don't get endless dirty looks. But in the beach volleyball game, you can't. You can't. Hiding the shame that this game would induce being caught playing would be impossible. Like, this game is bouncing boob simulator. There are a few reasons why you would play this, and none of them are the game. At least, I don't think so. I've played the game, and I thought, wow, this is not a good game. I don't want to play this game, and it's awkward, and it's not a fun game. The only reason people buy this game is because they want to look at big old bouncing boobies. That's it. They're horny. Period. That's it. Don't even try. Do not get into the comments and try. Don't. If you can cop to it, you have my respect. If you cannot, and you try to explain this as a good game, well, nobody believes you. There's no dramatic story. There's no really particularly good gameplay. I mean, it doesn't ever get more explicit than bouncing boobs, but somehow that manages to feel a little more icky than like Cyberpunk, which has full body nudity in it, might I add, and it doesn't really make people bat an eye. Where that game is mature and tells like deep stories and attempts to say something, Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball does not. Like, the primary selling point on this one is bouncing physics. Like, that's the thing they improved over the course of the beach sports, whatever you want to call this spank bait series. Like, the stuff that the women in these games say is just beyond brain dead, a little too cheery, and weirdly trying not to look sleazy, which makes it look way more sleazy. It's actually to a point where it's not a game I want to play alone. Like, maybe if the game itself was better, I don't know. I don't hate boobs or anything, like, but this is weird. It comes off as creepy. It's weird. And at number 1 is Final Fantasy X-2. And for everything that Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball is, I don't actually think it's weirder than Final Fantasy X-2. I was powerfully embarrassed from this game. It was not what I was expecting at all. Probably the first time I was ever really embarrassed about playing a game, in fact. It was something I wanted really badly, and I was often talking about it. Like, I wanted to know what happened after the events of Final Fantasy X. And to be fair, it has that. And also, to be fair, the original Final Fantasy X has its fair share of embarrassing scenes, particularly anything involving the romance between Titus and Yuna. That stuff can be pretty hard to get through at times. But if you look at all the cringiest stuff in that first game, it's a drop in the water compared to the ocean that is Final Fantasy X-2.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
It's one of the only direct sequels of a Final Fantasy game, and it got a lot of people excited. What's Yuna doing now that the world is saved and Titus is gone? Will Yuna be an interesting, full-blown protagonist? Or will she be a pop star? Anyone hoping for a game with a similar tone to Final Fantasy X is in for a rude awakening. The opening cutscene is a music concert, has really embarrassing outfits. There's 2000s girl power aesthetics everywhere. And I don't think even women really like that. Not now, anyway. It's all deeply embarrassing. Everything feels dumber and intentionally goofier than the original. The dialogue can be physically painful at times. And don't forget about the things like the massage minigame. It looks, sounds, and many times behaves like a porn game. It's a porno with no porn and all the cringe. It's all so over the top that many people have come back around on the game and proclaimed it a camp classic. It helps that it's actually a good, in terms of gameplay, JRPG. The job system's great, but unless you got friends and loved ones keyed into the particular wavelength of cringy nonsense, playing this game around other people will be a black hole of embarrassment from which there is no escape. And none of the games on here are irredeemable, except maybe Beach Volleyball, because it's not a good game. There's a lot of good in Final Fantasy X too, and there's some interesting plot stuff. Shinra, for instance. Like, there's plenty I enjoyed from this game and a lot of the other games on this list, but man, I would not want to get caught playing any of them. I do have a couple of bonus games for you. The first, I think you gotta give it up for Nier Automata. It is a complex game with important themes about loss and finding meaning in a meaningless world, but it's also a silly action game where you play as a gothic Lolita with an uncomfortably short skirt slashing up little Tinker Toy men. If you got family that isn't into anime, doesn't understand what's going on, this is a real perverted looking game. Like seeing somebody walking onto the scene where little robots are all humping, and then the robots form into a giant vagina and give birth to a naked guy. It's aggressively strange, and it exists in the same space as Stellar Blade. Clearly, Stellar Blade took some inspiration from this game, and not just because the main character looks like a sex bot, but for as weird a niche as this game is, it actually managed to break into the mainstream. So a lot of people not used to Yoko Taro's unusual ideas possibly experienced at least a little embarrassment trying to play the game. Like any game where an upskirt isn't just possible but essentially unavoidable, it's going to be embarrassing at some point. Does not matter how many other big ideas it has. The last one I want to point out is Doki Doki Literature Club. The whole point of this game is it's meant to appear like a cutesy visual novel, but there's a dark twist. The problem is the game has to go for a very long time before dropping the twist on you. So if you want to get to the horror, you have to sit through a whole lot of really embarrassing anime dialogue. It plays up on all the stereotypes to a T with its all-girl cast. There's the busty stupid one, the serious long-haired one, the energetic little girl. It's wholesome in content, but it doesn't stop it from being extremely embarrassing if somebody comes in to watch you play this weirdly sexualized anime girl game where they're fawning all over each other. It's all set up, but it's also the vast majority of the game, so even though it's mostly there to make the twist a surprise, it's still there. And for anybody who's just walking into a room, doesn't know what's going on, it looks like you're playing a cutesy anime visual novel semi-sexual game. It's weird. It's weird. It's all weird. And some of it's good weird, some of it's bad weird. Let's talk about it in the comments. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.